For the last 2 years, we informed the world that Israeli terrorists masquerading as IDF soldiers were murdering Palestinian men, women, children, and babies in Gaza with impunity. But the Western propaganda outlets such as the BBC, the CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other usual suspects kept defending Israeli war crimes. According to these enablers of the genocide in Gaza, Israeli terrorists were merely targeting Hamas fighters, but because Hamas fighters were using Palestinians as human shields, this resulted in an accidental Holocaust, something never seen in recent times. We all knew this was a lie. This was just to ensure that the butchering of unarmed and defenseless Palestinians continued unabated, which satisfied the genocidal urge of the Western politicians. Now, a special broadcast by ITV has officially confirmed what Janta Ka Reporter repeatedly told you in the last 2 years. ITV has interviewed Israeli terrorists, quite a lot of them, who were responsible for murdering innocent children and babies in Gaza. And they have made extraordinary confessions about their war crimes. The testimony is chilling because this is for the first time the terrorists themselves are confessing to their crimes of epic proportions. Essentially, what these monsters have admitted for the first time is that it was free for all in Gaza. An Israeli terrorist from the world's most organized terror outfit called the IDF felt that he or she was feeling bored and wanted to have some excitement in their life by killing an innocent Palestinian. This was a good enough reason for them to murder an innocent Palestinian. Daniel, an IDF commander, told ITV, and I quote, "If you want to shoot without restraint, you can." End quote. Others also admitted how the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was essentially created with an intention to murder starving Palestinians by first luring them with food and other essential supplies. According to the Guardian newspaper, these monsters also confirmed IDF's routine use of human shields, contradicting official denials, and gave details of Israeli troops opening fire unprovoked on civilians racing to reach food handouts at the militarized distribution points set up by the US and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Yotam Yelk, who was in Gaza as part of the Israeli terror outfit, the IDF, he said that in basic training for the army, we all chanted means, intent, and ability. But means and intent did not apply in Gaza. In his words, and I quote, "There is no such thing as means, intent, and ability in Gaza. No soldier ever mentions means, intent, and ability. It's just a suspicion of walking where it's not allowed, a man aged between 20 and 40. End quote. So essentially, as long as you suspect that that person is not innocent, you just shoot them dead. And that's exactly what we have seen in the last 2 years and a bit. Now cast your mind back to the daily slaughter of hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza during the last 2 years, particularly since March this year when war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu announced the forced starvation of the entire population of Gaza. According to the United Nations, as many as 1,400 Palestinians were brutally massacred as they gathered to seek food from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation terrorists during the period of forced starvation. And this is a very conservative figure. So what these confessions show is that every effing allegation by Israeli terrorists and their paid stooges in the US, the UK, and the EU was a confession. What did we expect from the deranged and depraved individuals, such as Donald Trump himself? He too willingly parroted Israeli lies by accusing Hamas of using Palestinians as human shields, when in reality, Israeli terrorists were committing this heinous crime against humanity. This was Trump not too long ago.
We're going to see what happens because I hear Hamas is trying to use the old human shield deal, and if they do that, they're going to be in big trouble. They're going to be in big trouble. They put it out 2 days ago that they're going to use the hostages as human shields. That's something that hasn't done for a long time, you know.
I'm not a big fan of ITV because this media outlet has constantly harassed us at Janta Ka Reporter for lawfully using clips of their broadcast. But when the issue is about humanity, we must rise above our personal likes and dislikes. So I must applaud ITV for its courage to broadcast such a powerful piece of journalism. We expected the BBC to do this since we are funding this rogue organization with our hard-earned money called the license fee. But this organization has been busy acting as the Israeli Broadcasting Corporation in the last 2 years. There are credible examples to suggest that the BBC news coverage is being led by severely compromised elements who have their ideological alignment with the rogue settler colony of Israel. As I said in my last video on the resignations of Tim Davie and Deborah Turnes, you can watch my video here. These two powerful individuals never felt the urge to show honesty to their editorial guidelines when their presenters and compromised representatives were busy disgracing journalism on the Gaza coverage. They resigned because the editorial dishonesty against Donald Trump was out in the open, and with this was the threat of a potentially $1 billion lawsuit. If Tim Davie and Deborah Turnes truly cared about the reputational damage to the BBC, they ought to have got rid of every single rogue element in the organization. So there is no point for Turnes to shower praises on the BBC journalism because no one will take such claims seriously. The BBC is now perceived as nothing more than a propaganda outlet, even in the UK.
I stepped down over the weekend because the buck stops with me. But I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider.
Why did you fail to deal with the mistakes that were made?
And see my teams. Thank you so much.
Right, we're going now. Do you think that the journalists are institutionally corrupt like President Trump says? Do you think the journalists
Of course our journalists aren't corrupt. Our journalists are hard-working people who strive for impartiality, and I will stand by their journalism.
Is there institutional bias at the BBC?
There is no institutional bias. Mistakes are made, but there's no institutional bias.
But why weren't the mistakes dealt with on Trump, on anti-Semitism, on women's rights?
I'm sure that story will emerge, but for now I'm going to go in and see our team.
Do you think the board acted against you? Do you think the board acted against you?
This way, Deborah.
And if Tim Davie and Deborah Turnes felt that the resignation would end their misery, or for that matter, that of the BBC, they were blissfully mistaken. Trump has told them to fully retract the claims that the BBC Panorama program made in its broadcast on the speech made by Trump on January the 6th, 2021. Trump has given the BBC until 14th of November to completely retract the claim that the Panorama program sought to make by doctoring his speech. The US president has threatened them with a $1 billion lawsuit.
Now, we have got a copy of the letter that has been sent by Donald Trump's lawyers to the BBC. It's from a legal firm, Britco PLLC, based in Coral Gables, Florida. It's a 4-page letter, and it is sent to the General Counsel, the senior lawyer at the BBC, Sarah Jones. I'm not going to read it all to you, but the key bit at the very end, if the BBC does not comply with the above from November the 14th, by November the 14th, 2025 at 5 p.m, President Trump will be left with no alternative but to enforce his legal and equitable rights, all of which are expressly reserved and are not waived, including, here's the kicker, by filing legal action for no less than $1 billion.
Trump also told the BBC to make a reasonable financial compensation offer. And going by Trump's previous track record, he is not going to settle for anything less than millions of pounds. Just so you know, Trump made the ABC pay him a whopping $15 million for its libelous broadcast against the US president. I would be surprised if Trump lets the BBC off the hook. Now, can you imagine the impact on the BBC as an organization if it's made to pay millions of pounds from the license fee money to Trump? This would mean laying off staff or shutting down some services. All because this once reputable organization has fallen into the grip of thugs and genocidal supporters. When your focus is to continuously defend the perpetrators of the worst genocide in living memory, you would surely not be able to do justice to your core values as an organization. If you remember, I had warned when the BBC had capitulated to the Israeli lobby to sack a national icon called Gary Lineker. Why? Because he had chosen to oppose a genocide. I have said that Gary was the litmus test for Israeli genocidal maniacs. They knew that if they could get Gary sacked, no one would be off limits for them. That's why I say the beginning of the end for the British public service broadcaster has just commenced. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.